Thank you, everybody that joined the summit. And we're joining the session right now on data ethics, misuse, and disclosures in senior marketing. We're going to focus on senior fraud and who's targeting older adults and how to stop it. We have our three panelists are Wayne Bell. Wayne, if you want to rename yourself and so put your name on your
I wouldn't
yeah.
even know how to do that. I'll just leave it there. My name
It's
is
okay.
Wayne.
Okay. Rename yourself as AKA Wayne Bell
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Sarah Frano and Sarah Gagan. Wayne, do you want to start off by introducing yourself and giving a little bit about your background?
Sure. Thank you very much, Jessica. My name is Wayne Bell, and I am a lawyer in California. I'm admitted in DC and Texas also, but not active there. I'm a California real estate broker. My background includes litigation, regulations, legislation. I was the real estate commissioner for the state of California. Before that, I was chief counsel of the California Department of Real Estate. I am currently the general counsel of a small company that I formed with my former colleague at the Department of Real Estate. We help consumers answer questions regarding the real estate law and regulations. And my first entree into senior issues was in 1983. I was on a state bar committee, and for a while I worked for a developer, and we did senior housing in Southern California. So, and I just want to say thank you for putting this summit on, Jessica and Mark. It's important. I'm really happy to meet my co-panelists
Mhm.
and to connect with everyone in the senior environment. It's so important that we can share information, we can talk to each other, we can connect and understand what's happening across the country. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sarah Frano, will you please introduce yourself and give your background, please?
I am the Sarah today with an H. So my name is Sarah Frano, and I am the VP and of corporate underwriting at First American Title, and my title is the Director of Underwriting Fraud Risk. And so I have the absolute pleasure and honor of looking at all of our fraudulent transactions, both ones that have been successful and ones that are being attempted in real time. And that's for the entire country. So I have a really big lens over everything that is happening. And because I do what I do over the entire country, I get to see the patterns very early on, and I get to recognize what's happening in the trends, and keep both our customers and our company safer because of that. And I have been with First American for over 17 years now, and before I joined corporate underwriting, I was in claims, and I was a manager in claims, so I handled fraud claims. Like Wayne, I am an attorney, and I'm on the inside though. So my thing is, I am so concerned about what the potential is for our elder population when it comes to fraud, because they are the wealthiest elder generation we've ever had. And their homes, which is the American dream, is to own a home, is usually one
Mhm.
of their single greatest assets. And the fraudsters are out there, and they're going directly after that greatest asset. And so I lie in the position of seeing this every day and the impact that it has on families and on generations. And so I'm really happy to be here. And Jessica, I'm so glad you asked me to come and join for today. So with that, I will pass it to the other Sarah without an H.
Yes.
Hi all, I am Sarah Gagan. I am Senior Counsel and the Director of the Consumer Privacy Program at the Electronic Privacy Information Center, also known as EPIC, but not Epic Health and not Epic Systems. EPIC is an independent research and advocacy center in DC focused on enshrining and protecting privacy in the digital age. So I think I have a very different background than some of not only my panelists, but many people speaking at this summit, where I focus on data and data privacy. My area of expertise is commercial surveillance, which includes things like data practices and targeted advertisements and data brokers. We'll speak a little bit more about that. But I'm very excited to be here today to talk about the role that data plays in targeting elderly populations, in scams, and in harming us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Let's start with Wayne. We're going to start with what's most concerning fraud trend that or trends. There's a couple of things that you've been putting in my radar, and I know you write a lot about it. So you spoke about it, but what's your top trends that you're seeing right now that's keeping you up at night?
Well, it's interesting because things evolve, and obviously the scammers just constantly move and they think of different scams to do. But we're seeing a lot of timeshare exit scams. When I have gone to speak to senior groups, I always ask them, "How many of you have timeshares?" And you see the hands go up. Then the next question is, "How many of you want to get out of timeshares?" And the same hands go up. They want to exit the timeshare obligations that they have, where they pay assessments, and it seems like a never-ending obligation. So the scammers are out there; they can find them easily. Mexican cartels have done this. There's scammers throughout the United States, outside the country, and you probably hear radio ads. I hear them all the time in California. It's like, hey, we can help you get out of your timeshare obligation. It's easy. And these scammers, they take money up front. They give bold promises, and it's the false hope that that they're always selling. The other thing that I've seen a lot of are liens on homes, and more often than not, it's a senior who's paid off his or her home, and some scammer records a lien. And obviously, unless the senior is looking, unless they have a bank overseeing their liens, they have a title company that has some active person looking at their title. They're not going to know about this. And so when that person dies, these people have active liens that will be uh, used to either foreclose on the property or to get money from the ultimate sale of the property. The other thing that we're seeing, and obviously, like I said, it evolves a lot, and seniors are targeted, and it's not just seniors that are the
Mm.
victims of fraud here. They're the same kind of fraud: the timeshare resale fraud, timeshare exit fraud, and then home title theft. Now, don't see that a lot, but I get calls occasionally from people, including a reporter who called me who said someone stole my dad's home, and she spent a long time and a lot of money trying to get it back, and unfortunately he died before they ever get the property back. So those are the main things that I've seen. But there's all sorts of fraud, obviously, against seniors. And the other thing I wanted to add to what Sarah said, yes, this is the wealthiest generation,
Mhm.
but seniors are also the poorest generation. In
Mhm.
California and elsewhere, seeing a lot of seniors who are becoming homeless. In fact, that's one of the largest growing populations of homeless people, and so it's just tragic. And then the other thing that I'll throw out there, Jessica, is what you and I've talked about. It's not fraud. It's just it's sort of like a lack of understanding, or almost like an ignorance, and it's the lack of careful planning. It's the lack of understanding. It's a senior citizen who has a great deal of equity in his or her home, and they think, I've got to get into elder care. And so they go to a real estate person who has no clue, and the person sells the home, and they get a large chunk of money, and all of a sudden they lose a large portion of that to capital gains taxes and other taxes. And so, by not understanding that there are alternatives to elder care that don't require the sale of the largest asset, the loss of the largest asset, they have deprived themselves of a future, and that money gets eaten up very quickly in elder care, as you know. So that's my summary.
We do see that. We talked about that. I think Mark and I, because Mark and I connected, and how we are uh, we've been networking with people that are more in the senior care. And so we have Mark's education. The crossover there is that what we're discovering, um, although it's like, oh, we just found out about this, is like, yes, real estate agents, probably about 50% of them, well, I shouldn't put out that number because 57.6% of all statistics are made up on the spot anyway. But I could tell you, like, half the people, half the agents that we speak to don't know about capital gains. They don't understand about step-up basis. I don't even understand that much, but they should at least be aware, especially when talking to seniors, or they don't think it's their responsibility. So there's that piece of it too.
Right. There is no legal duty under the California real estate
Mhm.
law to understand this. Most real estate agents, I understand, have a basic understanding of the tax stuff, but they're not necessarily thinking about the consequences to a senior who is going to sell a large asset and lose a lot of money in taxes, and then basically that's it. They have the money and no house.
Right. That's why we shouldn't pick a real estate agent like pick a tail on the donkey. You should have somebody that's like very, very specific to what's going on with that family situation or that person's situation. Um, what's keeping you up at night? I think you're going to talk about, what Wayne just mentioned, but we took Sarah, this is Sarah Frano.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frano,
I know what you're
Frano,
saying,
sorry.
the deed fraud,
Yeah.
right? That's what you're talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will just counter Wayne and say this. I see it every day, all day long. Like I'm
Mhm.
inundated all day with
Hmm.
deed fraud. It is every day, all day. It's incredible. And this has been going on for about, I feel like it's about 4 years now, is when I first started noticing it. And the actual actors, because I can tell the handwriting and I could see the repetition and the pattern, and then it is just blown up. And I still see those same people, and I see the different groups that are working this scam. But what they do is you either there's only a few ways to commit real estate fraud. Okay, you either sell the property like you own it, or you borrow against it like you own it. That's
Mhm.
Hmm.
it. Or you're committing wire fraud. Okay, so that's a cyber crime.
Right.
The impersonation is so easy, especially with AI now. They make it incredibly, realistic IDs. And the government will even tell you, the FBI will tell you some of these IDs they can't even tell themselves are fake. And so we can layer in all these different controls into those spaces like ID verification and things like that. Um, but the technology has progressed in a way with AI that it is really difficult to keep up with the AI and how they're able to impersonate. They can buy everyone's information out there for next to nothing. I literally just got off of a phone call with a former FBI agent, cybersecurity expert, who was like, "No, email right now in the next 10 minutes. This is easy. This is no big deal. um, I can go buy all of your accounts right now online for less than a McDonald's hamburger right now. All of our information, there is no such thing
All right.
compromised. And so that makes it really hard, right? So they can impersonate people, they can get all the details about you, they can pass the checks that are, within the technology, like knowledge-based authentication. They can pass through the ID verification with like this, use so now that the things a year ago I was talking about and warning people about, like, hey, get on a camera, make sure you make them put their hand up in their face, do a 360 or turn around. Well, AI can do all of that now seamlessly.
Oh.
So, we all move in this digital world, and look at us here. We're on this digital space right now. We're not in person. You can't see or feel me. I could be fake. You don't know. And it's
No,
true.
you're real.
I am real. But somebody can take my likeness
Yeah.
and they don't need very much to create me. And so we've seen this time and time again in our real estate transactions where we have an impersonation, but they're using the technology, they're using AI to bust through all of the barriers. And so that's what's keeping me up at night, is where is this all going and how do we stop it and how do we help prevent it?
Yeah, and what's going to happen to all the victims of this is really the piece.
Well,
Um,
this is that, I hate that part, right? I'm a lawyer, I'm a protector at heart. I hate that in our legal system, and especially when it comes to real estate and property, you have to go to the courts to have it undone.
Yes.
Fake deeds on your property or fake liens, like Wayne said, but you have to go to the court and file something, which means you have to pay money being a victim. And that always feels wrong, right? You shouldn't have to pay to when you're a victim. But that's what we have to do when it comes to real estate is you have to go to the court and have the court look at everything, and they then adjudicate whether that's a wrongful lien or a bad deed. But you usually, especially with our, elder population, they have to hire somebody. They've got to pay money and they've got to go hire a lawyer. So that's more money. And, like you mentioned, somebody passing away before they could get that resolved. It takes time. Courts take
Yeah.
time. And that
Yeah,
uncertainty is really hard on people. Even though you can't technically steal people's title, it still creates uncertainty and stress and expense. And that's not fair, right? It's not fair.
Do you
the other thing I wanted to add is some seniors are actually embarrassed to report.
Yeah.
They don't want their family to think they're non compos mentis, so they don't report the crimes. And the other problem is there are too many silos for reporting. There are too many places to report. The FTC will say report to us. SEC say if it's an investment scam, report to us. The Department of Real Estate will say report to us. And I think we have to be better in figuring out how to give seniors and those who represent them places where they can report. There's the IC3, the FBI
I see three.
reporting. There are attorney generals in each state. They're district attorneys, but too often a report goes to one place and it just sits there. Nothing happens, and it's too bad. And as you mentioned, Sarah, people die before they know what happened here. I was an expert witness in a case recently that the AG had, and the AG almost brought me to tears when he said, "Will you help my clients get some justice from the afterlife because they've died? They lost their homes, they lost everything, and then they died. And
Mhm.
these guys who scammed them are living happily and with all the money they stole."
but they're unhappy in the inside. A bit, you're really warming the crowd up for our conversation tomorrow with on scams and fraud and things like that. I wanted to kind of bring Sarah Gagan into the conversation because the way Sarah and I had met is because there was somebody doing an investigation or a white paper or doing some discovery on I think they would be in line with data brokers because there's people that are advertising things and that's evolved, and then there's data brokers, and I think people that are in the senior living space would be really interested in this because of who the investigations are being on or who the white paper is being developed for is really for these tactics that are being used to really target seniors and their families. And I would consider myself a marketing funnelist, but there's some bad marketing funnel practices going on. Can you just speak a little bit about that, Sarah, without an H?
Definitely. Yeah, I echo with what some of what Sarah and Wayne have said, especially I think some of Sarah's first piece that she was talking about, which is um, the fraud and scam that I would call very data driven or surveillance driven. And I'll start by saying that the United States faces a data privacy crisis. We lack a general comprehensive privacy law that governs how our data is collected, disclosed, processed, and retained. And many states have different laws. There's regulators that have rules and authorities to regulate data. But even when we have rules that could be useful to protect us, they are largely under enforced and unenforced entirely. So what happens, as I'm sure many people know, is in the digital age, there is a lot of data out there about us. And this data can be used by bots and by scam artists. They collect our personal information. We spoke about the FTC. I testified before the FTC's impersonation rule hearing about the role that data and AI plays in scamming actually all people, but elderly people. Wayne mentioned how people are embarrassed to report this. Young people are also scammed a lot and are the victims of fraud, but are often too embarrassed to report this. So we know that the statistics we have about victims of fraud and scams are actually underreported. But data is out there for bad actors to grab and use and exploit to harm us. And so that, I think, to answer your first question is just the rise of data-driven and surveillance-driven fraud and scams is concerning. And then I think, Jessica, to speak to your second question, which this is much more my background than real estate,
Yeah.
uh, is data and data brokers. And I think just to give a very brief overview, because data brokers are largely entities that operate without regulation or without very much regulation. They're opaque and they're kind of black boxes, and we don't really know about them. They're not the big name companies that we interact with all the time. So, just to take one step back to explain a little bit of this ecosystem, is that information is collected about us digitally almost all of the time. It is several times a minute. It's when you're browsing the internet on a device, on your laptop, on your phone. Um, it's even when you swipe a credit card. It's when you have a loyalty rewards program somewhere. It is constant. And how a lot of this works is that there's tracking technologies in our devices, in our browsers, on our apps, etc. And those tracking technologies collect information about us and almost immediately disclose it to some third party that we've never heard of. Well, sometimes that party is like Facebook or Google. We've heard of them. But oftentimes these are companies that we haven't directly interacted with, so we don't know them. And those companies can be data brokers. And they collect information about us and they start putting it together to profile us and to create inferences about us. And this is very useful for targeted advertising. You can see how if I'm searching shoes online and it's about to be winter, an advertiser would want to know that to send me an ad for winter boots. But the amount of information collected about us and the sensitivity sort of changes this into things that can be harmful and can be very exploitative. And so some of the types of data that are collected are publicly available information. And that can be things like things on a website or, uh, something that's like a newspaper article, sometimes census information. And we get information from the government. So that can be things like DMV records. And I think related to probably most of your work, anything that has been filed with a state can often be collected by a data broker. So this is things like professional licenses, recreational licenses, if you've ever had a hunting or fishing license. And I think very relevant to all of your work is real property and assessor records. So tax information, assessed value, liens, deeds, mortgages, mortgage releases, pre-foreclosures, any identifying information about the owner of a property and information about the real property itself, square footage, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, whether there's a pool. And like I said, there's also DMV records, voter registration records, which could give information about where you live, court records, and then on top of that information, all of the information that we have that could be advertisements you've interacted with online, your Google searches, your location information. And data brokers take all of these data points, which is so much, and have inferences about us. And this can be about our health. I've seen data broker segments that say things like, this person is likely to have kidney disease, and that'll be relevant in just one moment for what I'm about to say, but also things about your home. I've seen data broker segments that say, this person has all new appliances, or this person has large appliances that are 10 or more years old. Why that might be relevant is because maybe that means you would be more susceptible to an advertisement for a new stove if they know your stove is over 10 years old. They know if you have an electric stove or a gas stove, if you have solar panels or not. They know different types of really anything that you would have had to record with a local government. They'll have information about that with your real property. Again, very ripe for advertisements. What is very harmful, and I would actually say a lot of the profiling in this way is harmful, period. But what is really harmful is when this data can be bought, by bad actors for very little or leaked through a breach or through other ways to bad actors. So the Department of Justice actually settled the case with a data broker because the data broker had sold lists of people with memory problems,
Mhm.
including
Oof.
anyone over a certain age, so elderly populations, people that were likely to have dementia or Alzheimer's. Data brokers sold this list, no problem, to scam artists who used this list to target people, knowing that they were more vulnerable because of their impaired memory capacity to defraud them. Um, the Department of Justice did an investigation. It ended up settling that case with a deferred prosecution agreement. The data broker was called Epsilon. But I think this shows how sensitive and revealing our information can be because it doesn't always feel like one piece of information is that important. But when it's part of an overall bigger picture that reveals not only how old you are, but how long you've lived in the place you live, the conditions of your home, the things that might be valuable for someone to sell you, and also characteristics that you might have that would make you a really great victim for a bad actor. And I think this is a really important conversation. I'm so glad we're having it because I think that the role of data and data brokers and targeted advertisements is really important here because of the harm that can happen.
Yeah, I think that like one of the things first of all, you're scaring the you know what out of me. I did in a
Sorry.
no, in a former life, I worked for former FBI agents, and their whole thing was like we really scared the crap out of them. Like they were happy when they did because it's like the gift of fear. Like it's the gift of fear, like letting people, it's awareness, right? And you pointed out that it's not necessarily seniors, but then there's specific things that they're doing for seniors because we know that there might be some confusion or they're not as aware or all the other things that make them more vulnerable. And I think Wayne, you and I talked about this is it's not I'm not so much on the data side, but just be on like poor, not necessarily just bad actors, but people taking advantage of
Yes.
situation. And like you had a recent article about how that maybe people are I hate to use this term, but kind of lowballed, they're maybe they're selling the house and maybe they're not, the senior doesn't know the value and maybe they're selling it to their buddy. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there's data which shows that senior citizens, when they sell their homes, they get less money than someone
Mm.
who's younger because they're not aware of all the different ways they can sell it. There are also real estate agents, whether it's a broker or a salesperson working for a broker, who will say to a senior, you know, the best way for us to get more money for you is for me to sell it inside my network. It's like a private
Mm.
listing or a private listing network. And so it never hits the broader market through an MLS. And that's another form of fraud. It's almost like elder abuse in some ways because what they're doing is they're withholding information so they can benefit themselves.
Mm.
The other thing that I used to tell seniors when I spoke with them is, you know, you are targets, whether you like that or not. You're targeted, and you're targeted for a number of different reasons. One of which is they consider you to be vulnerable. They consider you to be more friendly than some younger generations. We had some neighbors right next to me here. People would show up. They knew they had an alarm system, and they'd show up and they'd say, "Oh, we're here to update your alarm system." So what happens? They walk in the house. They're in the house with these two people who are in their 90s, and they're, you know, rummaging around, and then they would say, well, we can upgrade your alarm system, and all of a sudden there's a new alarm company that's charging more money. So the fraud is scary. It's out there, and I'm so glad that you're doing this summit, Jessica, and I want to ask you to share this with Mark, because the farther we can get as far as reach, as far as knowledge, as far as helping people speak with seniors and explain to them that they are potential victims and that they have to be aware, vigilant, and constantly thinking about this, the better off we all are.
Yeah, and so I want to, Sarah Frano, talk about this. Talk about you had put a couple gave us little examples, but what can we do to educate people on this? Like educate people on maybe red flags and things like that, because we know and it's hard because we see it every day, we hear about the stories. We're within that ecosystem, but what is it that people should be looking for? Like how can we educate? And I think the other thing too is and this is why I'm really passionate about what I'm doing and really grateful for connecting with Mark, is that I'm bringing a lot of this education into the senior care ecosystem where I come from, where there's professionals working with seniors and families every day that just don't have this information and they have access to the actual families. So we want to get this information to them so they're more aware of it. But what should we be sharing with them, Sarah? Like as far as with examples that you just previously gave with wire
So
fraud and things of that nature.
yeah, so one of the things, and I'm glad we're talking about marketing on this as well, right? So one of the things, I'm sure you guys have heard it, I'm sure you guys have seen it, is ads talking about certain type of products that can lock your title, or they say, deed theft.
Yes.
Um, and all of those marketing terms steal your title. All of those little buzzy words that catches everybody's attention, it to me is, you know, uh, false advertising. It's fear mongering. It's a fear-based type of ad campaign because that's legally not possible. You can't steal title. You don't lose it. A deed that's recorded or a bad lien on your property, you're not responsible for it. You may have to go do something to clear it off, but you don't actually lose your house and you don't lose your home or your property. Um, and so that idea that you can steal title or that you can lock it, there's no way to lock your title. Okay. So, that is a clever marketing thing that makes people think that they are doing something that is actually not legally possible. Our public record systems are open. There's no county recorder that stops something. That is their job, is to take something in and to record it. They can reject it for various reasons, but their job is just to take things in and to index them and record them, and that is it. So there's no way to lock your title down. It's not possible. So I find that type of marketing, especially when it's geared towards seniors, to be misrepresentative of what the product really is, right? Which is title monitoring, where they let you know after the fact when something has been recorded. They charge a fee for it, a monthly fee, but a lot of counties give it away for free, right? Our company gives it away for free to certain customers in states. So there's a lot of that same resource that people are paying for that is actually free and is available, to the public. I think it is a helpful thing because it lets you know when somebody has recorded something against your property, and then you can help mitigate things very quickly. So I think it's a good thing, but some of the marketing that I see around it isn't quite on point, right? And it's just clever
Right.
marketing terms, vulture type of marketing terms that don't really represent what the product really, truly, truly is. So, I see that a lot, and I get a lot of questions, especially from seniors, about that because they've got equity and they hear those commercials and they hear them more than any other population because, as Sarah talked about, they are targeting that and they're the ones who own the homes. It's not the 20-year-olds holding the homes right now because they're too expensive, but it's all of the older generation that holds a lot of our real estate in this country. And so they are being targeted with that data that Sarah's talking about. And so what can people do? Yeah, sign up for it. If your county offers it, offer it. They have it for free. Sign up for it. Our company offers it. Sign up for it. It's for free. That can let people know when something has been recorded. I think it's a good thing to have. But paying attention to those advertisements and what they're really saying and what they really are meaning are two different things.
And Sarah, let me ask you a question. I was told a while back, and you would be the expert on this. Is there a title policy that you can buy which covers a home buyer for post close liens and deeds so that if there are false deeds, false liens,
Yeah.
the title company will take care of that and they'll actually do the clearing of title.
Yeah, this is something I'm so proud of our industry for doing. There are title policies that cover post policy fraud. But some states don't have that. And then, well, you look at our elder population who bought their houses back in the 80s, the 70s, or the 60s, right?
Right.
Those policies didn't come into existence until the late 90s. So, in response to this fraud trend, everybody got together and they have now 2 different endorsements that people can buy. So if you are in a state that doesn't have that type of policy available in your state, they now have an endorsement that you can add to it. And if you are a homeowner who bought your property a long time ago and you want to add that post policy fraud coverage to it, they now have that endorsement that you can go and buy from your title underwriter. It's very cheap. And get that post policy protection that you didn't have before. It's the Alta 49.1 and the Alta 49. Those are the 2 endorsements.
Wow.
And in the real estate world, we're constantly seeing articles and hearing about media reports about real estate licensees who are contacted by a purported owner, and they're told, we need to sell this thing right away. And the real estate person gets all excited and interested. They put down a for sale sign, and what they're selling doesn't belong to the person who reached out to them. So that's happening a lot in California.
It happens a lot. And here's the shame of it too. When we'll catch these deals and we'll say, hey, real estate agent, this isn't real. Your buyer's not real. They will say, that's okay. I'll take it somewhere else. They'll close it.
Awful.
Yeah. That's hard.
Sarah Gagan, what kind of current investigations or discovery that you're doing right now that is kind of in line with, we know about the one that of the companies that you guys have been looking at, but can you give us a little bit insight about something that's more related to real estate?
I don't know that I can. I can say that I think there is a lot of concern into data brokers right now, and there is a lot of concern into especially what is considered sensitive information being processed by data brokers and disclosed, obviously without people's consent or even awareness. I think that state regulators and federal regulators are concerned with fraud being facilitated through data and surveillance, through AI, facilitated scams, AI impersonations. And yes, I think attorneys general are concerned. I think state legislators are concerned. And I think that we have seen even some states recently, like the state of Maryland, ban the sale of sensitive information. And that includes health-related information. So when someone's data by inference shows that they might have diminished memory or another health condition that could be relevant to a scam, that actually could be banned from being sold to a broker and wouldn't be used in this way to begin with. So a long-winded way of me saying, I think that if we can create rules that govern and limit the collection, processing, and disclosure of data, a lot of the data that's out there in the hands of bad actors, or as you say, just sometimes not even bad actors, but players in the game that aren't the most ethical, a lot of the harms would go down with stronger data standards.
Hey, Sarah, I just want to ask you a question and then give you a thought that I have. Are you thinking that this stuff can actually be regulated and the bad folks can get whacked? And I'm asking that because my view, and looking at all the fraud that I've looked at just in the real estate area, is there aren't enough regulators, there aren't enough police, there are not enough FBI agents, there are not enough legislators who care to actually do something that can stop this. Because the bad players can go out of the country, they can change their name easily. So if you go after a particular person, that person just changes his or her name, creates an LLC, some kind of another box of some sort, and they continue to do their bad playing, their bad practices. And all I'm suggesting is it's an almost impossible burden to try to stop all this stuff.
I would just want to agree. It's because the fraudsters don't play by the rules. So we can set
Mhm.
all
Right.
the rules that we want, but they don't play by them. That's the whole point. They're criminals,
Yeah.
right? So you can make the law. They don't care. They don't
Yeah.
care. So what do we
What?
do? What's a person to do, right?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, I agree that bad actors are they're gonna act bad, but uh, and I think that what maybe you're talking about is sort of this case by case enforcement of there's an action here, we're going to investigate. It takes a ton of time and resources, and perhaps we can find the person, maybe not. But at least with respect to all of the data that is out there that is facilitating this, there could be an entirely different set of rules about governing the collection and disclosure of that information. The internet, as we know it, was built by big tech, and big tech is the architect of the internet. So, largely, when we have an app on our phone, it was built with these tracking technologies that I mentioned earlier built in, they're embedded. They're on hospital websites, they're on school websites, they're all over the place, these tracking technologies. And that doesn't need to be the case. It is not functionally necessary for the services or rendering of a website that our information is automatically disclosed and collected, or is automatically collected and disclosed to third parties, because that is really where the harm is. We can create data standards. So that might be different than, criminal or real estate code that I can't speak to. But we can certainly create data standards that limit the collection and use of information to that which is necessary for the purpose of, what you're trying to do. Go on a website, go on an app. And if that information is only ever collected for the purpose that it's being used for, it doesn't wind up in the hand of data brokers. I mean, there's this phrase that I often say, which is data can't be breached if it wasn't collected in the first place. Data
Right.
can't be accessed by a bad actor when it wasn't collected. And it certainly can't be, if when data is breached, and that's how it gets oftentimes in the hand of bad actors or scams or fraudsters, a lot of that data is actually pretty easy to purchase, as we've mentioned, or as Sarah mentioned. So yeah, I do think there are ways to massively limit the amount of data that is out there that can leave us vulnerable. And that is, of course, unrelated and a different type of rules and standards, I think, to what you're talking about. But there are certainly ways to limit
Sarah, I
data.
have a
Yeah.
question for
Yeah.
you. So that feels very big, right? That feels very big, and not something I feel like personally I can do. What can I, as a person, do to limit my data exposure and my data footprint out?
Yes.
Did I
Yes.
freeze
So
up?
yeah, I think all good.
Sorry.
I understand. Um,
Yeah.
yes, and in fairness, that is a big ask because no individual person should have to protect themselves against the monstrosity of all surveillance on the internet. It is a massive problem. It's a systemic problem that needs a systemic solution. That being said, there are actions that individuals can take. First is toggling on your own privacy settings. Most smartphones have some sort of way. Apple has tracking transparency, which limits the disclosure on your phone across apps. There are more privacy protective browsers and websites that that prevent third-party tracking technologies from disclosing and collecting your information. Um, there are states that are moving on this. There are attorneys general that are interested in this. We've talked about the FTC. You can file things with the FTC, but I'd actually like to talk about California for a second because I know we have some California people in the House.
Mhm.
California has something called the drop it goes live August 1st. And this is a one-stop shop for California residents to go on, and it's through Cal Privacy, which is the California Privacy Agency, which is the agency directed to implement California's privacy law. California being the first state to enact a comprehensive privacy law to protect Californians. And it's why, I don't know, you all are probably much more normal than me, but if you've ever looked at the tiny words at the bottom of a website where it says, privacy policy, there might be a link that says California residents click here, you have more rights about your data. And one of the really exciting things that is happening is that this drop is going live. And this is a way for consumers in California to request that data brokers delete information about them and continue to stop processing their data going forward. So this is actually a really effective way to remove yourself from some of those lists that I was talking about, where data brokers are selling lists of people that have certain criteria, have certain profiles. Um, so yeah, I mean, there are things we can do. California has a data broker registry,
Mhm.
where data brokers are required to identify as such, pay a fee to the agency. But yeah, I think the drop is an effective tool that consumers can use to request the data brokers delete their information.
That's
And
great for
I just,
California. That's great for California.
right, I
It's
just
going to be
want
bad
to
for all the other states
jump
that they can't be in anymore.
in. I just want to jump in too. And obviously, this is great what California's done, and I'd like to see other states do the same thing. The other issue that seniors have is they're not necessarily tech savvy. I'm not, and I wish I were more. There are some seniors who won't get on the internet. They don't have computer access, and so that's all well and good to say, well, you can go on drop, and I'm telling you, Sarah, that's really important. My concern is there are a whole bunch of seniors who have no idea that this stuff is going on. And what you said just now, your presentation is so invaluable because everyone should hear what you just said, that all these people are out there and they're taking information on all of us. And I think for the seniors who don't have access to tech, who are not tech uh, conversant, they need to know that they need to be vigilant, that they have to watch out, that they know that they're aware, that they need to think through stuff. And Jessica, I also know that this should lead into our discussion about pausing, stopping,
Mhm.
don't make crisis decisions. And I can tell you, I get stuff on my iPhone every day saying, "Hey, you didn't pay your bill for your tracker to go through the bridge. You didn't show up at jury duty. You're gonna get arrested today." And so this is happening all day, every day.
Yeah.
And some seniors just jump on that and they go, "Oh my God, let me give them my credit card."
I think they get confused. I was just, you know, like for me personally, my dad, he always goes upstairs to pay his bills. And, he's visiting one time for a long time and he keeps going. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm paying a bill. And I'm like, how many bills does my dad have a month, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I gave this organization, I just gave him a donation. Like my dad's never been a really generous guy. And I'm like, and I think like seniors get confused, right? They get on these lists, they make a donation, and then they're just gonna keep coming in, or they send them checks. It looks like a bill. That happened when I was home too. And I said to my sister, this is not a bill. I don't know what this is, but it's crap. So that's another form of it. So is the drop gonna is that for mail too, Sarah? Is that would that be considered like when they're these data brokers, are they doing like the mailings as well, or is this more kind of like internet?
So the data brokers have the data and they're
Yeah.
processing it and they're profiling us based on it. Mail scams certainly use data from data brokers. But that would be a party or an actor who purchased the data from the broker and then did a mail
Right. So
scam.
there's the
Yeah.
line. Yeah.
But yes, the data would not be available to purchase if it's been
Right.
deleted from a data broker. So
So what's the
yes.
difference between like drop and do not call.gov? I guess like can you get some clarity on that?
Yeah, so they're actually maybe similar concepts.
Mhm.
Although, so the do not call was actually kind of in a way the opposite of it was a list of phone numbers, and then it was sort of like, yeah, it was a list of phone numbers of that people that had requested not to be called. The drop, though, is a mechanism where you go on and after you have filled it out, you say you're a California resident, you say who you say you are. Um, they have to delete that data immediately within a certain amount of time. I can't remember if it's like a couple of days. And then every so often, they need to search for you to make sure that there's still no data about you. So whereas one is almost like a shield, the do not call list of this is a list of like, you can't do it.
Mhm.
This is the opposite of the data is being deleted.
So will
So
you
it
be
can't be accessed.
would you be able to so do not call, there's some kind of, there's a process that you have to confirm that it's you yourself, right? Whether it be the email, the phone number, or something like that. Would I be able to enter somebody else's name into the drop? Would I, if I was a daughter or, or a loved one, if I want to do for a loved one, can I put their information in there?
Yes, there is a way for, forget the name of it, but some sort of like assistance, whether it's an entity doing it for you, that like a group that is allowed to do it. It's sort of like an authorized user or a loved one.
Mhm.
I can't remember off the top of my head, and I am not a California resident, so I don't enjoy these rights that I think you all do. But yes, there is a way as an authorized user to authorize this person's information to be deleted.
So I think like to me, my head, I'm going, and I'm thinking, oh, well, there's so many advocates, in my ecosystem. But you think like you go to the doctor's office, you'll see maybe a note for like the drop or something like that. It'll be like grocery store, maybe they'll start advertising the drop and stuff like that. I
Right.
could see advocacy groups doing things like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it goes
Yay,
live in
California.
August.
That's awesome.
And but you can, it starts the deletion in August, but you can go on right now and request your information to be deleted. It will just start in August 1st. And I think 300 so far 300,000 Californians have signed up. Actually, probably more now, but last I heard. So
Think we
it's
should
growing.
start signing up and putting that LinkedIn. I did want to talk about while there was a little bit more time left is we talked about like the drop and reporting things, but like and I want to say with for Wayne in real estate, we talk about this if we or we feel like somebody has a professional or a group or an organization, and we think that there's unethical practices, or pretty sure they are,
Yeah.
how do we report this? There's so many unregulated things in senior care that there's nobody to really report anything to because there's so many things that are unlicensed, unregulated. Who to
Right.
report bad real estate agents to, and does it really go anywhere?
Well, you report bad real estate licensees to the California Department of Real Estate, and they'll investigate to see if they violate the real estate law. And if it's a broader fraud, obviously, and I mentioned this before, you should think about filing a police report,
Mhm.
contacting the district attorney in the county where it took place, the AG's office. They have a consumer protection section, the FBI if it's an internet based real estate crime. And I just want to back up because you, Jessica, you and I've talked about this. It was on the things you wanted to talk about. It's
Mhm.
the issue of pausing, and it's for
Mhm.
seniors to really think about, think things through before they act. It's to stop, think, talk with people, observe, gather all the relevant information, due diligence, and then proceed if everything seems to be okay. Because it's the crisis action, it's the immediate knee jerk reaction that causes a lot of the fraud. Now, having said that, to pause at the outset, if you're victimized, if you've been taken advantage of by a real estate agent or someone else, that the opposite needs to happen. It needs to be immediate action. It needs to be expedited. The phone calls need to be made immediately. So if someone's put a deed on your house, contact the title company, contact the recorder's office, contact the FBI, contact the AG's office. Do everything you can, and file complaints as broadly as possible. And so you have pause on the one hand before taking an action that can cause a senior to lose economic security irrevocably. And then on the reporting, report immediately and as broadly as possible. But a real estate fraud should be reported to the Department of Real Estate immediately. And beyond that, I tell people contact the AG's office, the DA's office, the FBI, and anyone else you think who might have jurisdiction. And if it's an investment related fraud, contact the SEC. And in California, there's the Department of DP. I forget what they call it. They changed the names, like Department of Finance and something protection. It used to be the Department of Corporations. Contact them. But it's there's a need to do it quickly and broadly, and that's what seniors need to know and their caregivers need to know.
Yes, I think you have to pause. It's very important. but then you do have to report immediately. And that's where a lot of people, they make the mistake. They have to process. Maybe they're embarrassed, maybe they're ashamed. And then
Mhm.
if too much time, goes by, then they're unable to like recover or identify, or find the culprit or what have you. And I think that's a big problem that we're going to talk about that in a session tomorrow too, is that it's so important to report this immediately when you're going to do that. Um, Sarah Frano I don't know why I'm Frano. I have to like practice it
It's
constantly.
okay. It's
Uh,
okay. I will
so
just add to what Wayne says there, though,
yeah.
which is, yes, the pause is key. Um, we see a lot of fraud that is stopped because people trust their gut. We all have like this
Mhm.
inane sense of what is right, what is wrong when something feels off. And so for the professionals who are listening, who, you're not the victim, you might be your client is the victim or your customer is the victim. But feeling like something might be off, but asking questions. We live in a world now where people are afraid to ask questions or have direct contact or pick up the phone or have personal contact. They're afraid of confrontation when they shouldn't be. Asking questions, getting more information is something that can help protect our customers. Go ahead, ask them, why is this? What is this about? Do you know this person? How did you meet this person? Tell me more about that. There's all sorts of ways that we can get more information without putting the senior in a place that is disrespectful, right? Or infringing on their independence or anything like that. So we can ask questions, get more information, because sometimes we see things and we can feel things that other people can't, especially if that person is the victim because they are emotionally tied in with the scam. And so they may not be able to see the forest for the trees. And so we need to be those eyes and those ears for that person. That's the other thing I would say is, don't be afraid to ask questions and probing questions and trust your gut. And then, just like Wayne said, talk to somebody else. Other people see things that you may not see, or be able to put pieces together that you may not be able to. And it's really important for helping protect our vulnerable populations is asking questions, um, and knowing you're there for them, right? You're there to protect them.
You're so right, and the scammers are good at getting people into states of it's almost like mental discombobulation.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from someone once, and the guy said, I talked to a guy today. He said he has a buyer for my timeshare. And I said, is he asking for money up front? He goes, mm-hmm. I go,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
scam. It's a scam. But this person was about to give them the credit card, for
Yeah.
like $2,000. And you're absolutely right. Ask questions, think about it, talk with other people, walk away.
Walk away. Stop, drop, roll, and walk away.
That's you
Yeah.
go. There you
Well, this has been so great. Sarah, is there anything you want to add as far as reporting or
Yeah, I mean, I would just I'd echo that. I would say be aware of a sense of urgency coming from the person. If almost never is the government or a person you love going to say, I need this money right now.
Mhm.
And I think especially with AI facilitated or AI fueled scams, bad actors know that people are more likely to fall for a scam or give more money when they believe that the person on the other end is someone they know and love and trust and is in need of their help. So individual impersonations are really on the rise, both in short term, like you get a call and it is your grandson's voice and he's saying he's in jail and he needs this money right now. You can hang up and you can call the jail and see. Because hardly ever, like, is this going to be the one opportunity to save your grandson? And then also sometimes over time, scam artists pretend to be an individual and they use data, they use information to build up a relationship, to build up rapport, to build trust, to ultimately exploit someone. And of course, you know, aging populations can be vulnerable, but I am here to tell you it's everyone. And so we should
Everybody's
all be
vulnerable.
alert and
Yes.
no one should feel embarrassed. And it's okay to hang up the phone and call back, call someone back and say, is this real? Is this happening? Because no one, we're all susceptible.
And I wanted to add one thing to that, and that is to verify, verify, and verify. I just got something from DRE about the Department of Real Estate about 2 weeks ago, and it said that scammers are taking on the identities of legitimate real estate licensees, and they steal listings, and they offer stuff at great prices, whether it's a rental or something else. And I just got notice from the State Bar of Texas saying they're taking on identities of lawyers in Texas. So it's up to all of us, whether we represent seniors, whether we're acting in our own capacity or working with seniors, to say, make certain that the person you're dealing with is even legitimate, because this
Yeah.
is happening all over the country.
Oh, yeah. Well, this was jam-packed session. Thank you all for participating. This is so great. We have another session coming up. Mark's going to do another one on implications of not financially planning. From the bottom of my heart, thank you guys. You guys were awesome. This is an awesome panel. Really appreciate it.